Hi, I'm Nancy Larson, and this is my last Facebook Live on Wednesday at 1 o'clock before the election. I had envisioned an election night like other election nights where we would be gathered together in a hall or restaurant setting and watch the results as they came in on TV, but there's no reason to have a regular election night when this year has not been regular at all. So we will probably be watching from our own homes, do a Zoom, and not have the chance that I wanted to take on election night to say thank you in person to all of the incredible team that has backed me up and been with me for this whole journey. So this is the time that I'm going to get a chance to introduce them to all of you and to use this as also a tutorial for any new candidates who have never done this before to learn from the benefit of what I've put together and what this team has learned in the time that they've been working on this campaign. I certainly know a whole lot more now than I did a year and a half ago, and I don't want that to be wasted. So the purpose of this Zoom will be to call out and express my gratitude to folks and for you to be able to hear from them and me what we've learned in this process to benefit other people going forward. First people that I need to say thank you to is the Lead Ohio folks. I was accepted into their leadership training program and spent 6 Saturdays all day in Columbus. And I learned from soup to nuts how to run a campaign. And it was an extremely valuable underpinning for everything going forward. So if you are interested in running, I already have given that information to Yusuf and to Amy, two people that said that they were interested in running. And I highly encourage anybody out there to check them out and get your name in the hopper for that training. It will be done all virtual at this point. Nobody's going to have to be driving to Columbus. I found out from that the very first thing I needed to do was get a treasurer lined up because, you know, this is all too much about money. And I didn't like that idea, but that was first role, get a treasurer. The first person I recruited was a friend of mine who's a retired CPA, and that didn't work out because he's a Republican. You are not allowed to have a treasurer from the opposite party. So I was casting about for a treasurer who would fit the bill for that, and pressed my friend Terry into taking on that role. He's a lawyer, not a CPA, but I figured between the two of us, we would be able to manage that. So he signed on, and I want to say thank you, Terry, for stepping up at that point. We were able to get a bank account opened and start accepting donations from people. And that, of course, until we get Citizens United overturned and public funding of elections, we have to raise money in order to have the wherewithal for the expenses that are necessary. Though he did not start out as a treasurer, Ed, who's on the call, did get pressed into duty for fulfilling that role. I've had 4 different campaign managers, and Quinn was my very first partner in all of this. He is coming back in again, so I will save him for a little bit later. But before I got the treasurer, I had a 17-year-old person who stepped up that I met at a meeting who said, I'll put your website together because I did one for school. And I assumed he was talking about college class. No, he was talking about junior class at Penta. And it looked good to me. And I said, great, my first volunteer, my first campaign manager, and we were off and running. And then the treasurer came second. Ed, you are working, oh no, Quinn's back again. Okay, I don't know if you heard, Quinn, what I was just talking about for you. So as my first and only partner in this venture for many, many months, putting together my website, teaching me about all kinds of political stuff that I didn't know as a 60-some-year-old person, you tutored me, and I encourage anybody who wants to do this, find a young, brilliant high school or college student and partner with them, because it's just been an incredible relationship that I've been able to have with Quinn over the last 2 years. And I want to have you know that and be able to say, thank you. I told you back then that if I won this, it would be very much because of the start that you gave me in getting out in front of people. And certainly we've done tons of stuff since then, but without you coming up and saying, I believe in you, I believe in this campaign, and I will help you. You were there first and foremost, and you're still there. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Can you talk?
Yeah, yes, yeah.
Okay.
I just wasn't sure if I was supposed to because of the format
Yes,
of
you
the
were
event.
supposed to say what you have gotten out of this, what you've learned that you know now that you didn't know then, and whatever else you want to share.
Yeah, it's been quite an honor to work on the campaign and to see it go as far as it has. While we were huddled in that meeting, it was very distant. I think it's been what, more than a year at this point, certainly, right?
Close to 2 years.
Yeah, and it was hard to imagine us coming as far as we have. I had worked on campaigns before, but only in the scale of, knocking doors and that basic stuff like that, not in any sort of management or general strategy or whatever role. And seeing the campaign come as far as it has felt insane. I'm really honored to have been as part of this campaign, advancing a political vision of basic human dignity, and democracy and human dignity in Ohio, in our state, and in our district. And I feel like we've done a lot of work. I know we've talked to tens of thousands of people, and come the day of the election, I'm confident that we're going to win. And it's really been an incredible thing to be part of that.
We got another shout out from Representative Adam Miller yesterday. He said, your blue wave and that graphic is just, I love it. I love it. And Quinn was responsible for creating that with me way back when. I wanted something that I could look at for 2 years and not get sick of. I wanted something that would be symbolic and be very meaningful, and it has fulfilled that. And kudos to you for helping me put that graphic together that has stood the test of the last 2 years. So thanks for that too. So Ed, when Quinn had to go back to high school and got too busy, I needed somebody else to step in and be campaign manager. And I asked around, and Ed Sika was suggested, and he came on for that role and has morphed out of that into more the financial reporting and helping Terry with the treasurer roles. One of the things that I want to say is that my goal for the campaign was to have nobody be too stressed by their duties that they were volunteering for the most part, to get fed up and quit. And I told everybody, I want you to have fun doing this. And I want, if you have too much work to do, we'll find another person to split the task with you. Terry did not want to do the whole treasurer thing and wanted me pretty immediately to find somebody else to partner with him. It took many months for Ed to graciously step in and do that, but the two of them have shared that task now. And I think it's important to be flexible, to listen to what people's strengths are, to adjust the roles that you may want from people, to does that role fit that person? And if not, find a different role that is more compatible. And Ed, thank you so much for your flexibility in moving from that one task into the other. You are deeply suited to that. I feel comfortable with your skills in keeping the spreadsheets and the numbers going. And I hope when the final auditing is done that we don't have much that we have to explain or go over. And I really, really appreciate your detail to paying the bills and taking care of who's donating. Thank you. You're on mute, Ed. You need to.
All right. Yeah, you're welcome, Nancy. With it's been over 40 years when I worked on a partisan campaign. Things have changed in 40 years. And in the intervening years, I've only worked on issue-oriented, involved with my employer, generally on a tax issue. So it was quite a learning experience for me to get back into it and see how campaigns have evolved. It's still one of the basics is contacting people and talking to people. So that hasn't changed, but the way you do it has. And this year we had a pandemic, which kind of changed everything again, so it's been a pleasure. And, that we still got 7 more days to go, and the campaign's coming along well. So
thank you for your contribution to that smoothness. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So Barb, I don't know if she's still on with us. Barb was next up to fill the campaign manager role for a short period of time because she had experience working on Tom Makin's campaign in Perrysburg, and years ago, Cardi Finkbeiner. Though she got called back to work at Costco and couldn't stay in that role, she brought Cardi into the campaign at a pretty critical point where we could make use of his expertise and his connections. And he set me up with an interview with Keith Burris at the Blade and was instrumental in facilitating me getting in front of some folks that I was happy to talk with, and he opened that door. So a lot of these networks that I've created or have been just fallen into my lap, divine providence, have been amazing to me. And Barb joining the campaign for that and having Crystal come, Cardi come as a result of that has been wonderful. I don't see her on the call at this point. So we will go to, this isn't necessarily chronological, but I'm trying to do roles and how they've transformed. Barb also has showed up with me and Tari, other folks to plow the crowds at the Sylvania Art Festivals, and has pitched in other ways that I appreciate. So the last and final campaign manager is Angela Abadiello, and she came to us as a result of a change of personnel at the Lucas County Democratic headquarters. And it was exactly the time that we needed somebody to come and do the overall management of what was becoming a large staff. And I feel this way for all of you, that I have no idea what we would have done, because each of you in your own way stepped in to do what needed to be done at exactly the right minute that it had to be done by you. And if you weren't here, God knows where we would be at this point. Especially Angela, you take credit for that and for whipping us all into some order and some shape that we were stumbling around. And I know you didn't have past experience doing this exact role, but your skills for fundraising, your skills in knowing the Dem Party, the players, the unions, specifically focusing in getting those other applications finished for the unions to get that help. Tari did a great deal with me earlier on, just sitting in my house. Okay, who are we going to do today? But you brought order out of that chaos, and a spreadsheet that we didn't have before, where all of the unions and all of the contact people are there and donations coming in. And thank you for all of that you have contributed. And my hat's off to you, lady.
Yeah, so you said you want this a little bit to be a tutorial for other people if they're thinking about running. So here's my accumulated wisdom. 2 points. Number one, have a great candidate. Have somebody who's smart and competent with a heart for everything that they're doing, because Nancy says, I don't know, these people just showed up. They showed up because of her. When you have a heart to serve, people want to come and be with you and want to help you do that. So that is the number one thing. People thinking about working on a campaign, have a great candidate. And then number two, have a spreadsheet. So those would be my main pieces of advice. So you can keep it all organized, because so many people have wanted to help Nancy over the course of this campaign. It did get pretty unwieldy at a certain point, and even now I kind of flip between different spreadsheets. But I'm just so proud of what this campaign has done, from you know, the massive challenge already of being a first-time candidate running against an incumbent, and then a once in a century pandemic. No one knows how to run under these circumstances, even candidates that have run for years and know all about it, because suddenly none of us can do the regular things, the in-person fundraisers and the in-person meet and greets. And, you know, it's just been crazy. So we've all been trying to figure it out together. And this team has just brought, you know, every kind of expertise that you could have. And then of course, everybody had to learn new things. Nobody knew how to do Zoom before this. Nobody knew how to do all this online fundraising and all this social media. And, you know, I mean, I would just, my hat's off to everybody else on the campaign. And I feel the same way Nancy does, you know, like, oh, we need to do things on Zoom and social media. Oh, Crystal can do that. Oh, we need a new communications person, friend of a friend, ask around. Finally, this new person comes along. We can talk about him in a minute. But, you know, people have absolutely stepped up with the expertise and the heart. But I think at the end of the day, it's because we believe in Nancy's vision and her heart for this whole job. Plus, Energizer Bunny keeps going, has not had a breakdown yet. We think we can make it through it. I mean, the other thing you want in a candidate is someone who just keeps going and doesn't need to take too many breaks, because it is a marathon. Running for office is absolutely a marathon. So thank you, Nancy. You've been fantastic. And this is our last week, and then we're gonna win.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to second the spreadsheet idea. I wasn't convinced, but I'm a believer now. I want to mention the NOFA Indivisible group. There's a couple groups that are my team members kind of on the side. And I went to an Indivisible meeting early on when I still had my blue flip phone, and they laughed at me and said, the very first thing you better do is get a smartphone. And they were right. I did go get a smartphone, only I didn't immediately use it when I was talking to people to put their number into the contacts. It probably took me, I don't know, a year to figure out you could even do that. So all of you people that have smartphones and know that you can put people into contacts, if you are going to run, take that phone out and put them into contacts. Do not write their number on a little sticky note like I did, that there are still some under a pile on my floor that I will find. I'm not sure how many weeks from now, but the names need to go in there with what it is that they are, maybe their email, and what it is they're volunteering for. And then that needs to go onto a master spreadsheet that you can use MailChimp for. We're just getting that together now, and it's like at the tail end of our campaign, but we have done the best that we could. And that's one of the things I learned. So passing that along. Along those lines, I wanted to give a shout out to Gina, to Deb, and to Sarah, who Deb and Sarah have been with the team as note takers for all of our meetings. We decided that it was important to have that function. We tried to do it among ourselves, but they stepped in and said they'd do it. That gave them a chance to participate, but without, you know, any full responsibility. But those notes then were available for anybody that missed the meeting, that they could review them and have that available to brief themselves for the next week's meeting. So thank you, Deb, and for Sarah for being the note takers, and for Gina, who was deeply embedded in the campaign, sat on the core group here and was our liaison with the NOFA Indivisible group, and was able to carry information. She engaged them in a postcard writing campaign. A lot of those ladies didn't want to go out and knock doors or be on the phone, and they were all about postcards. So again, find the strengths, find the things that people want to do, and give them those tasks to do. So thank you, Gina. They also have gone out on the street corners with my signs, Centennial and Sylvania, and they have been human billboards where they can keep COVID safe. And that's been something I very much appreciate too from that group. So thank you. NOFA Indivisible. I met this lady who also was a liaison between our campaign and the Anthony Wayne Dems, who I have to give a huge shout out to, because the Anthony Wayne Dem Club is been an incredible source of support and worker bees for us the entire year and a half that I've been doing this. They have been able to be called upon. They show up at a moment's notice, like yesterday at the press conference. And I just have felt their wind beneath my wings the whole time. And Andy Riley is the person who is in that group, who sat on my team and has done so much to connect me with that community in that part of my district. I met her originally about 2 years ago at a phone bank at the Lucas County Dem Party, and was impressed with how she was answering a call and talking with a person, and thought she was a counselor or a therapist or a social worker. And she's a school specialist working with autism spectrum folks. Incredible heart, but incredible passion for transforming this district in a direction that's going to be helpful for her school kids and the district. So Andy, thank you for everything that you have contributed financially, spiritually, socially with the Dem Club. And you have been just the Energizer Bunny that when I feel like I want to give up, I look at what you've been doing and say, I can't possibly, these other people are doing all this for me. I have to hold up my part of it. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. You're welcome, and it's been a pleasure. I agree with what everybody else has said. You need to find the candidate that will, that has the same passion that you have. I'm a huge believer in passion. If you don't have the passion to work for something or to do something in your career, in your personal life, in your politics, you know, you need to find that and go for that. So I think that's a really, really big deal. I am so proud of the Anthony Wayne Dems. We are a new club, but we have really needed to, you know, put our stuff behind somebody, and they have really done an amazing job, and I'm proud to be part of that group as well. I want to thank you for running. I want to thank everybody, because I think one of the things that happened is Nancy made us a team. And I'm going to share a story. I had a phone call at 9 o'clock, and everybody on the team knows I go to bed at 9 o'clock. And that phone call was from one of the team members who said, I know you go to bed at 9 o'clock, but I wanted you to know, and it was important information for me because I work in schools, about something that was going on. And so that person shared the information with me, and I feel so blessed to call her my friend now and to call everybody on this team a friend. And that's because of leadership. Leadership matters. It matters in Columbus, especially. Thank you.
What have you learned in this?
What have I learned?
Yeah.
I have learned so much that you will mute my mic. So,
Okay.
so I mean, seriously, I work with kids with disabilities, so I'm flexible to begin with. But when I think of those initial meetings that we planned, and we had this campaign plan, and then holy cow, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and then holy cow, you know, people my age with my color of hair are on this team, and we have to go up digital. What is, you know, and I'm decently savvy, but you know, all this other kinds of stuff. So I also know that it's hard to run. And what I want to encourage, especially women, because I am a matriot, I want to encourage women to do it and to find their circle of sisters and go for it, because there are people out there who can't run, but there are people out there who will really, really support you. And I think that's really important.
The Matriots are one of my other support groups that's sitting there on the side, but not at all on the sidelines. And they are a women PAC that collects money from folks to give out to women candidates. Initially, when I thought, what the heck are you trying to do? You are a social worker, you're not a lawyer, you've never had public office. They came and believed that I was exactly the kind of person that they wanted to help get to Columbus. So reach out to these folks if you are a woman pursuing school board, city council, no matter what, judge, sheriff. We have people, 64 women that they have endorsed, 64 women that they have given money to. And that is absolutely a support group that I feel has helped me get where I am in this whole thing. And Andy was the person who turned me on to them, that they existed as and I'm happy to let other people know that they are there as a resource. One of the other things that they've done is I don't have family support because my family are Republicans and they're going to vote for Trump. They paired me with somebody to be my own personal cheerleader who actually has my sister's name. She is Lorraine, and that is the sister who passed away that I took care of. That was part of me deciding I wanted to do this in the first place. So they had no way of knowing that. But when they gave me my personal matriot cheerleader, and her name was Lorraine, and she has been sending me messages and being a person for me to have in my corner. And women need that. It's okay that we need that. And there are other women that will boost us up and hold us up and help make this happen. So this team is very much women. There are men that I appreciate much as much as the women, but I cannot ignore the fact that how we are and how we run is different than I think male candidates, and that's respected. And there are groups like the Matriots that will make that happen, like the NOFA Indivisible, Anthony Wayne Dems. A lot of those folks have been women. Thank you. And I knew I would cry at some point, so I didn't put any makeup on. So. Okay, Tari, you are up next, my dear. Early on, I knew Tari from working on another campaign, and she is a retired Blade reporter, and I thought we definitely will need her skills in the communication aspect. She has been a right-hand person earlier on. When I couldn't kind of get focused and just had too many, what am I going to do today? Tari would come over to the house for a couple hours and sit with me and say, okay, what's at the top of the pile, or what do you want to do today? And it was just really helpful to have her say, okay, let's call that person right now and see what they say. Let's get that union application and let's fill that out, and I will help you. And that kind of, it sounds like I could, I'm incapable of doing things on my own, but this is overwhelming. There are a ton of moving parts, and to sometimes know how to proceed and put something ahead, to have a goal that day and get something concrete accomplished has required me to have somebody to physically come over and sit down and help that happen. And I really appreciate your willingness to do that, especially with COVID, and being able to, do that in a way that both of us were safe. Your contributions to editing things that I have written, editing letters, editing posts. Thank you for lending that to us, as well as all of your great ideas about how we could reach more people.
Thank you. Nancy never failed to amaze me, because no matter what was going on in her life, she always picked up herself, went out and did what needed to be done over and over and over again. So that's in the category of work for a good candidate. I think that working on a campaign generates a sense of hope. Mm-hmm. It takes our mind and a lot of our energy off of the noise that's going on all around us, and it focuses our best intentions on someone we can believe in. And at a time when we really need hope, working on this campaign always had an undercurrent of hope. And there were times when I didn't know if it was going to continue on an upward trajectory, but it did. Mm-hmm. And got more and more and more auspicious with every week that went by. There's a lot of room for creativity, I think, working on a campaign. And one of the things that I like to do was kind of look for gaps where something maybe wasn't happening that could happen. Maybe that would be trying to get a bunch of people to write letters to the editor, and sometimes even writing them for them and sending them out, and somebody picking them up and running with it. Sometimes things didn't work. We tried Zoom town halls, really sent out hundreds of invitations. And for every 100, we were lucky if we got 8 or 10 people to sign on to a Zoom town hall. So that didn't work out great. But then we found out about the First Friday walks in Sylvania. And then we got the idea to go to football games. And so, you know, some ideas panned out really well, some not quite as well. But it's a wonderful learning curve. As much as it was for you, it was to a lesser degree for us, I'm sure, but still a wonderful learning curve to be part, and as you say, the 1,000 moving parts of a campaign. There are, and I probably only saw 75 of them. Probably saw 300, but you saw all 1,000. So it's a great activity to volunteer for. Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well,
Crystal, we needed social media, and we needed a expert person who could come in, and all of this stuff I have no clue about. We tried to manage as best we could with smaller scale stuff, but when things were ramping up and we really needed to be, I have to admit, I personally have never been on my own Instagram. I can't handle more than Facebook and Twitter, but Instagram and YouTube and all of the other pieces of social media outreach, Crystal was recommended by Terry, and again, popped up right at the exact right time that we desperately needed to get that going. And she has handled that without fail and without complaint, despite COVID scares of her in her family, losses, the regular stuff that life goes on. I have felt you being a rock, constantly responsible and responsive to me and the needs of this campaign. And I cannot thank you enough for that steadfastness, that professionalism that you have brought to the table, always knowing that you will be where you're supposed to be, when you're supposed to be there, without fail, doing what we needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a ride. Through my first political campaign, I've learned a lot. I've learned from the Ohio Dems. I've learned from you. I've learned from Angela. You know, I've learned from Quinn and James and Andy and everybody. You know, I've been able to take in information and adjust as necessary, and it's been really awesome being here with you guys and getting to know you all. And definitely recommend having a designated tech person on every campaign. and a list. Always keep organized and keep yourself organized and know where everything is.
What's one thing that you wish you would have known like 4 months ago that you know now?
Who my actual representative is. You know, it wasn't until I really got into your campaign that I actually learned who represents me, you know, and knowing the details of the people who represent me is super important in making my decisions to vote. And one thing that I've learned from a lot of people that I've interacted with outside of the campaign is that, you know, the easier it is to know who represents you, the more likely you are to vote for them. And you've been out there, you've been meeting people, you've been talking to people, everybody knows your name. And I think that is why you are a lot different than other people. You get into the communities, you talk to the people, they know you. And that community building is what makes this team awesome.
Thank you. That is one of the things that major things I've learned that I had no clue about, is that becoming a candidate would mean becoming a boss to some extent and a manager of a team. I guess I thought at first it would be like me and maybe 3 or 4 other people, but as it was obvious, oh, we got so much work to do, and we added all of these people, and we ballooned from me and Quinn to 20 people now on this team. I never expected that you're going to have to be like the manager of this whole thing, and you are the boss of this operation. It's felt natural. I don't know, whatever skills I have that I've brought to the table, I've been honing over the last 40 years. And I've just done what I would naturally do, and it's worked to engage people, to support people, to solve the occasional conflict that came up. But I did not know that. So if you're going to run for office and you're going to have a whole giant team, you're going to have to know how to manage that. And it's been neat for me to see, oh, when I get elected, I'm going to have one legislative aid person. I won't have 20 some people. I'll just have me and one person, and that'll be so less complicated. But it's knowing all of the personalities here. It's been delightful to me to interact with all of you and to make the team into a team. And that's part of the skill set that you need. Thank you, Crystal. I want to step to the side, and Nick is not on the call, but Nick Galina in Akron was one of the people that we engaged earlier on to do data mining for us. And he's been instrumental in cutting turfs and focusing persuadable universes and how we could get messages out to particular groups of people that we wanted. So we didn't have that in-house in Toledo, but Akron, and he's been present and available. So I wanted to give a shout out to Nick for thanking him for the work that he's done on the team that way. Field, we muddled through doing our voters stuff, but when it became necessary, we needed to step that up. We had to recruit a couple more people to man the fort on that. And we got Marky and Brian and Kyle, and these folks were available. And Yusef, yes. I was going to put him on the side there too. These folks started our phone banks and our lit drops and took the burden off of me for trying to figure out how to make that happen. And Marky is on the call. I don't think Brian is, but thank you for, again, stepping in at exactly the right time to take that over and to make that program work. Paula, who's a personal friend of mine that I know from my chorus, and Sue, who's also a personal friend, they've supplemented that workforce in reaching out to voters and Olander Park, going with Tari and Paula doing the lit drops at this point, filling that in. It takes everybody to say, I can't do it this day. Can you help me out here? And we've had people that were willing to cover shifts and have each other's back. So Marky, what have you learned about what's needed for a field operation in a campaign?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you, Nancy, because really I'm here because I've watched you show up for the last 2 years and be vocal over the last 2 years and support local causes and activism, and really want to second what Crystal said about community building. I mean, that's what drew me to your campaign and supporting you. So thank you for that. And I think as far as the campaign, everyone's going to bring skills and vision and experience, and your campaign is made stronger when you have an environment where you can foster leadership and you empower people to learn new skills and take over projects that they might not know how to handle up front. One of the best things has been also working with some of the other campaigns and their willingness to call me and say, here's how we're doing it, and share some of those resources and kind of build that up across the board. Alex from Jill's campaign was really helpful. Nick's been really helpful, and just the willingness to call me and say, let me teach you how to use, Vote Builder, or teach you how to use Minivan. And that allows me to then be able to show that to all our volunteers. So it's really amplified. And that happens when you have a candidate that really cultivates that environment. And fosters that in the team and allows them to have space to grow in their positions. So thank you. And thank you to everyone and all the volunteers who helped us get 15,000 pieces of lit out over the last month or so. Did not think that number was possible when I first started. So it's been great. Thanks.
That means we still have 2,000 more to go.
Yeah, and they can sign up this weekend if they want to help.
It wasn't about fostering your growth. It was saying, I really, you can't learn how to cut turf and do minivan. I mean, you know, the smartphone was a giant learning curve, the Zoom calls. There's some pieces of this that I just like, no, don't have the bandwidth. So relying on other people to do those pieces of it and having you be able to do that for me has been wonderful. Paula, you get the award, I think, for person who has walked the most turfs. I'm not keeping track, but I know that you have a stress fracture in your foot to prove that you have been walking more than you should have. So you and Kyle are bringing up some energy here at the tail end of this time for those of us that are flagging a little bit. So you've been kind of on the sidelines, but coming in now at the tail end when we need fresher people has been really helpful. And I appreciate you being willing to do that and walk all that time. But you know, you got to take care of your foot now, honey. You are muted. Do you want to say anything?
Yes,
Sue.
I would just like to let everyone know how amazed I was with the team that you were responsible for getting it some way or another. I mean, it takes a village for sure. And I was just proud to be a small part of it all. I did what I could when I could, and next time it'll be more for sure, because I have definitely enjoyed all of it and listening to you. And boy, there's nobody more deserving of this election than you, for sure. You've worked your tail off. I've seen you keep going and wondering how, and it's just been great. And I want to thank you for allowing me to be a small part of it.
You listened to me dreaming about this before it actually started to happen. So thanks for being there. Sue, I don't think you are on, but Sue is also a personal therapist friend of mine who did this kick-ass fundraiser to get us our first couple $1,000s way back at the beginning when I couldn't even imagine how are we going to make like $400. And she had this idea to do a outreach with us in each of our networks and thank you gifts to have at the end for people that were the one, but that was an incredible act of organization at the beginning and gave us a little bit of a foundation to say we can do this thing of fundraising and we can get the money together that we need to float this boat. So thank you, Sue, for that. I also want to say Kyle will be at Wauseon High School on Friday at 2:45. If there's anybody listening that wants to help us get those last of those 2,000 lit pieces around in Wauseon and Archbold, you can just show up at Wauseon High School at 2:45 on Friday, and he will have the information to cover those territories out there in Fulton County for us. And I wanted to read this before we finish off the last people. I don't know who wrote this, but it said, the only one who should be crying is Derek Marin when you crush his hopes and dreams on election day.
Based off the name of the profile, I think that was Aiden.
Oh, yes. Okay. Thank you, Aiden, if that is Aiden. And Gina said, thank you, Nancy, for always appreciating each and every one of us. You are an incredible candidate and soon to be state rep that all Ohioans can be proud of, especially us. Thank you, Gina. Okay, last but not least, James. And he could not be on this call today, I don't believe, because of a work conflict. He does have a day job, working for, doing communications for UT. And he was one of those people that fell into our lap right at the exact right time that we desperately needed him to take over as our communications director. And I know his partner from years and years and years back, and actually reached out to Matthew for a fundraising call. And as we were chatting, I said, you don't know anybody that could help with this, do you? And he's like, well, actually, my husband does this for a living. And it was just like, oh my gosh, James has got to take the prize for the most work in the last 10 days. He's going to be up to his eyeballs getting us TV content, putting together digital ads that we had to get out before a deadline on Monday. He has been responsible for so much of the ads and the digital reach that we've had. So James, thank your little pea picking heart. You have just been an incredible, incredible worker bee for us. And again, I have no idea where we would be if you hadn't wandered onto the scene at exactly the right moment that we desperately needed you. So that is everybody except for Mark Lutke, who sits at the top of this food chain. I had met Mark along the way, probably a year, two and a half years ago, before I had any idea that I might want to do this run. And he reached out to say, if you need any help, let me know. He was on my to-do list, and months and months and months and months went by, and he reached to us and said, look, I want to help you all if you are up for the task. And he has contributed strategy, PR help, overall advice to all of us. And when I need to know what should I be doing, I can call him and run it by him and trust that he's giving us all solid advice for how we can win this election. So Mark, I hope that you can be proud of this effort that you are at the tippy top of, that I can be the comeback kid for a Democrat in this seat that has not had a Democrat for 35 years. I'm hoping that we bring it over the line, and you will be a large part of making that happen. So I have no idea what time it is. We got 7 minutes. Let me look here. We have another comment. Thank you, Paula. Basically just saying she's been glad to be a part of this journey. If there are any comments or questions that people have, this would be the time. We have some minutes that we could address it. The flexibility that each of you have shared, the creativity, the willingness to step in, the commitment and passion that all of you have, that matches my own desire to have a different person in that seat working for all of us and the democratic ideals that we share. It does take a village to raise a candidate. It takes 1,500, 30,000 votes to put a Democratic person in this. And I hope we can make that happen. Yes, Therese.
Nancy, what would you do differently?
Start with that phone thing, putting those contacts in there, being organized from day one so that I wasn't like scrambling. Understand that you need to capture all that information instantly so that it's available to be used with email, reach out. I think I started well in advance, I thought, but there's so much work to be done. I can't imagine having a full-time job and trying to do this. So for me, I had to clear the decks. I had to shut down my private practice in order to get the time to do this. I don't know if that's a function of my age, and if somebody that was, 30 years younger would be able to somehow put that all together. But that was one thing that I wouldn't do differently. I wouldn't have been able to do it any differently to put in the workload that was necessary and try to work. But the biggest thing I think that I learned is the need to be organized immediately and not think, well, well, I can get that in place. I can get that in place, because it is just like that ramping up that doesn't stop. And if you have that in place from the beginning, I think you'll be in a better place.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Yep, Quinn. You're still muted.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So, oh, wait, I closed Zoom.
No, you're on.
Well, no, I mean, like, I minimized the window. Okay,
Oh.
there we go. It has been positively incredible to see the campaign come from you and I huddled in Dennis Slotnick's house for an Our Revolution meeting, and over 2 years see it transformed into a fully fledged competitive campaign, endorsed by so many unions and other groups around our district, endorsed by Sherrod Brown and Marcy Kaptur. And I think that it shows that there is a not just a desire, but a need for transformational progressive change in our country.
Mhm.
And I really believe this campaign has showed that when working people come together and stand up, we can accomplish so much more than what we have. I obviously the votes aren't all haven't been counted yet, but I really believe we are going to win, and that's only because of the hard work of so many people, but particularly yourself. And I really believe we are going to pull this off.
Thank you, Quinn.
For the many, not the few.
I just
Yep.
wanted to also say, I would encourage candidates
Mm.
to reach out to local groups and see if they can, because I think having a conduit to like the Anthony Wayne Dems and to the Matriots and to
Mhm.
Nova and to some of those places really help get the information, because I know the presidents of those clubs especially during a presidential election, they're swamped. So I think having a dedicated person from groups on a
Mhm.
campaign really helped, because it's not just piling all of this information onto like the local Democratic Club leader, the local Nova leader, or whomever. So I think that was a really nice piece that we did on this campaign.
Yep, that was not my idea. You came in with that, and Gina came in for NOFA. I do need to shout out our Rev people. They have phone banked and they have done lit drops, and being involved in each of those organizations has spread the workload out, but it's also spread out the reach. And that is vitally important, that people that want to work use their networks and use those social connections that they already have. There's probably still some people at my church that don't know that I am running for office. I have tried to keep a separation of, I'm at church to go to church. I'm not there to politic. That's been somewhat frustrating, because I wanted to be able to use that social network too maximally, and I've shied away from doing that because it just hasn't felt appropriate. But other than that, I have maximized the groups that I belong to, and this team is made up of those groups. But it would be a mistake to not say that our Rev was there, and the workforce of those people, Quinn included, has been a part of what's helped build this team. Okay, we have 1 more minute, so I guess I'm going to take the last word, like MSNBC, the final word. This will not be a victory for just me. If I get to Columbus, I will be the spokesperson and the mouthpiece for all of the hopes and dreams that you all have poured into this campaign. And it just so happens that those are my personal hopes and dreams, that we share all of that in common. But know that I will be there representing your interests and being the person who's picked out of the crowd to do that. never forgetting that I am only there as a representative for the best interests of the majority of people in my district and in Ohio. It's not about me. It is about all of us having that collective experience of a place at the table, a voice at the table for all of us. So thank you for all of the work that you have contributed, and we'll see what happens on November 3rd. Bye, everybody.